Woo!
What up?
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to Commander's Paradise.
Welcome.
If you can't see, you should turn your phone sideways and hit play video button because we just did a cute little peace sign. So, um, ooh, you want to listen to our podcast? That's gonna get cut.
No.
Welcome to
Cut that.
cut that. Welcome to Commander's Paradise. Today we're talking about the color blue, right, Tyler?
Yes, it's one of the 5 colors of magic. It's the second one, depending
That's
on who you ask.
incredible. You know so much about magic. It's so cool.
That's like the bare minimum. If that's impressive, it's like, oh wow.
Ooh. So it's one of the 5 colors. We've already talked about one of the colors in our mono white episode, so we're kind of continuing the flavor train to Flavor Town with this one. Just going to be talking all about blue, which is a pretty fun color. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of blue hate online recently, and I don't know if it's all completely justified. But I guess we're going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Blue for a long time was the best color in Magic, period. And like R&D had to like completely like change how they like go about blue in order to like bring it down. But if you look at like the Power 9, it's all colorless cards and then blue cards.
Yeah.
So it's like and it's just kind of cuz like the way they made blue, it's just kind of the most powerful stuff you can do. It's like taking extra turns,
Drawing
cards. Like that's how you win games, is like doing more things and having more cards than your opponent.
What's the last one in the Power 9? Because there's Ancestral Recall. Is it Time Walk and then...
Time Twister.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that's like kind of... It should be the Power 8, and then Time Twister's just kind of there. Like, Time Twister's really good, but it's not... I mean, it's not banned. It's the only one that's not banned in Commander. So, I don't know if it's not the same. It's not the same as drawing 3 cards for 1 mana or taking an extra turn for 2 mana. Not even.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I mean, it's just a wheel. Okay, I always forget what Time Twister is. It's pretty much Windfall.
well, it also shuffles your graveyard.
Does Windfall not shuffle your graveyard?
No, it's just discard, and then everyone
Draw whatever the most was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Meh.
Wait, does Time Twister shuffle your graveyard? I think it does.
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
It do. It's 2 and a blue. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, and then draws 7 cards. So I guess you're shuffling your hand and your graveyard. But
that's why like
still...
Echo of Eons is like a crazy card, because it's like 6 mana to do that, but then if it's got a flashback cost of 3, so if you can get it in your graveyard, it's literally a Time Twister.
Oh shit, that's sick as fuck, and the art is awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. That's fun as fuck. I love when there's shit like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Having the flashback cost be the same thing as like the original cost.
Mm-hmm. And it's still really good. It's like a
Oh.
$15 card or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But blue has kind of chronically done cracked things, I would say. Yeah.
And it still does kind of crazy stuff. So,
it's also got some pretty exclusive ways to interact.
yeah.
Yeah. But
we'll,
what were you thinking about starting?
Oh, I was just gonna talk about what like blue is kind of flavor wise.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's like blue is like the color of knowledge, and like logical thinking, and also I was reading like how Mark Rosewater describes blue, and it's like it's an enemy color of green, because green is like it's kind of like about predestination and like because of the nature of things, and blue is about like escaping your predetermined nature through like effort and like knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's more like it is like just literally like learning things, like being a wizard, and that's what like drawing, that's why they could draw cards, is like you're learning new things.
Yeah.
But it's also just like using yourself to better yourself in the world around you and escaping what is predetermined of you, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's
Thought that
pretty
was
cool.
interesting.
Yeah, I haven't heard it put like that before. It kind of works
Yes.
gameplay mechanic too, thinking about how like originally the your life total is like your body and your deck is your mind.
Hmm.
And Blue's win con is to, at least it mostly has been to like try and deplete the mind more than it is like smashing the body, where like
Yeah.
green is more about like turning things sideways and like turning that life total to zero. Blue stuff was more focused on like doing mind tricks, which is like really kind of fun. The flavor of this game is so good.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, like when
That's
you get into the
like,
nitty gritty of it.
yeah, and like it's just kind of amazing that they nailed it right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And like just like the core of the game is just like perfectly designed, and like the five colors are like, it's like you can fit anything. It's kind of like zodiac signs, where it's like all personalities can fit in the zodiac signs,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's like you can fit like anything into the magic color scheme, and like
Yeah.
it can be complex, it can be very simple. Like very complex characters can be described in magic, or they're just like it's a dragon.
It's
just a red
it's
dragon.
just a
That's
big
it.
dragon.
And you know
Don't
what a
worry about
dragon
it.
is, and it's red. Or you can be like 11 from Stranger Things and like fully be like that. You can condense like this elaborate character into one card.
Yeah, into like a single set of colors.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's sick.
But yeah, do we want to talk about mechanically what Blue is up to?
Yeah, I think we should probably also start with the elephant in the room.
Yeah, what's that elephant, Ryan?
That elephant is the boogeyman of Commander. Counter spells. Ooh. Stop, you're scaring him. I feel like it gets a lot of like people who play a lot of counter spells sometimes get a lot of hate, and obviously like if you're casting a bunch of counter spells for like 1 mana and just being a dick to people, don't do that. But I think counter spells are pretty fun. It's a really awesome way to interact with the game, and the only way to interact with stuff prior to it being on the battlefield, which can like really change the flow of a game.
Yeah.
If an ETB, because especially with so many creatures having ETB triggers, and so many like enchantments just adding immediate buffs to stuff or immediate what's the word? Immediate value. You have to interact with it fast enough that doesn't even go off. So if you're able to stop it before it's even totally left their hand, that's like the most devastating way to stop something and to like keep your board intact.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like Blue with their ability to use counter spells is like the color that's good at like interacting with the stack and like stopping, like it uses the stack more than any other color, and it's more instant speed than any other color, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And it's definitely the unique thing about it, because like I mean red definitely is like probably second after that, but like compare that to green, where like they're just like, I'm casting this thing and now it's here, and then that's all I'm doing is I'm doing this, and then it's just gonna sit there. But blue just like can interact in a way that no other color can, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. Definitely enables that draw go ability, especially if you're playing like blue and artifacts, and you can do pretty much anything at instant speed. It's just easier to wait and like force someone to interact with you, stop them from interacting, and then do your plan, which is like almost feels like cheating to the way that the rest of the like colors would
A
have
little
to
bit,
play.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's really crazy to
Because-
just draw your card and be like, land. I don't have to do anything else. I'm just gonna wait. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. And being able to sit and wait and respond to things is very, very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And like being able to stop things from even like resolving is just incredibly powerful, because like all the other colors like want to interact with things when they're on the ground. So like black wants things to die, green wants creatures to enter so you can use their power, Red, when things enter, red deals damage. When white things enter, you gain life, and you gain life, or you can draw cards, or you can do things with equipment and enchantments when they enter the battlefield. And blue's the only color really that can be like, no, that you don't even get the enter the battlefield effect from it.
Yeah. It's just saying no. It's
Um,
just like a big stamp on papers, please.
mhm.
Um,
And I don't know. I think the hate for counter spells comes from people that like misuse them,
yeah.
because I don't think you need to just counter every spell your opponent's cast. Because one, I think that's a waste of everyone's time. It's a waste of your time. And how are you going to win? I just countering everyone's stuff doesn't get you any closer to winning. It just stops your opponent from winning. It just causes you to not lose, which is not proactive at all. It's very reactive, you know?
Yeah.
And which, I mean, if you're doing like, if you have like a Baral out, you can draw cards when you counter those spells, but you're not, or you've got a Talrand or like a Shark Typhoon or something, so you're making creatures that can then attack, sure. But besides those like instances, just counting everyone's spells isn't accomplishing anything in the game. And like the point of a commander game specifically, not 60 card, in like Azorius Control and like Pioneer and stuff, it's like, hell yeah, just counter everyone's stuff, and then you just make a shark with Shark Typhoon. You have a 2/2 flyer, and you're just slowly gonna kill them. And like it sucks, but like it's totally valid. It can be good.
Yeah,
But
and
in a
it's also
commander game-
more normalized to scoop in that setting. So if you were to hit a point where you're just like, holy fucking shit, I have no cards in hand, you're countering everything. You obviously have 3 counters because you just keep passing. I'm just going to
You're
concede.
about to ult your Teferi, and you're gonna start exiling all my lands.
Yeah,
Like,
you're like,
that's
it's just,
game.
I can't do anything, so you're done. But in Commander, you feel like you want to try and push through it because, like, at some point, maybe they won't have any more counter spells, but they seem to always have more. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And Commander being like the social format that it is, like, I feel like that's kind of just goes against why we're all here. You know, like the point is to everyone's deck does something and contributes to the game. Like it's like 4 people having an experience together. And just countering all the spells does not facilitate that game. That's not like to me, that's no longer what Commander is. That's just you just stopping everyone else from playing the game, which is like not to me. That's not the point.
Just like a
That's
weird,
not why I like to play
lopsided
Commander.
arch enemy game that like no one wanted to play. You know, you're it's like you never leave the starting town. You never leave Pallet Town.
Not to say don't ever use counter spells, because blue, because it has access to counter spells, there's a ton of permanents and things. Once they're on the field, blue can't really deal with them once they're on the field. And so you should use counter spells in a proactive way to stop your opponent from winning, so then you can win. Not to just stop them from winning and then, like, you know, but like if you're like, you need to stop an enchantment, counter it. Fuck yeah. And or if you need to protect, I exclusively use counter spells to protect my stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really care about countering anyone else's stuff. Like, you're just gonna, whatever you want to do, just do it. I don't really care. I care more about having 1 mana up so I can make an offer you can't refuse to protect my dude from being killed. So then I can keep going and doing the thing I care about and winning the game that way.
Yeah.
Personally, that's how I use counter spells. And like sometimes you have to. Sometimes like someone's gonna just win the game right now and you need to counter it, and that's really good and really powerful.
Yeah.
But I'd rather hold stuff up to protect my stuff. I don't care what other people are doing.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like, would you use a heroic intervention in this moment? And it's like, no, they cast 3 visits. I wouldn't cast my heroic intervention now. You know what I mean? But if you were to cast like a city leveler, I would be like, oh, I'm probably gonna counter that because that's like a pretty consistent removal on the battlefield. And even
Yeah.
if I'm in blue, I bounce it back to your hand. You're going to cast it again, which gives it that ETB trigger.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm only going to counter like big things that are going to affect my board. And it's kind of like if you wouldn't cast a protection spell against it or try and stop it with something like that, would you counter it? Probably not. Like if someone casts a Behold the Multiverse, yeah, maybe it's 2 to 4 mana, but I wouldn't, probably counter that unless like they have a setup where then it turns into that board situation too, where if them drawing that 2 cards is going to make like 7 bodies, and those 7 bodies is also going to make them draw like another 2 cards. It's going to make another bot, you know what I mean? And it's going to like kind of spiral in some way. Obviously, counter that. And it's like if you cast a Cultivate where you already have your like 50 Scoot Swarms and Azusa and a bunch of other shit out, like, yeah, you should probably counter that Cultivate. That's going to cause
Sure.
more problems. But like when it's turn 4 and they cast a Cultivate, what the fuck are you doing? Use that
That's just a
mana to
waste of
draw
card.
cards.
Like,
You know what I mean? Yeah, like set yourself
yeah,
up for
yeah.
something, then put someone behind. Because if you're putting people
Like, you
behind, then
just
you're
went.
not going anywhere.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, like you just stopped one player from ramping, but you went down a card, and then 2 other players now are up. So 2 other players are now up cards
Yeah.
on you and the opponent.
And
And you
depending
didn't
on
really stop anything. You just stopped like one extra land and drawing a card from coming into play. And that's not worth the counter.
And if you suck at threat assessment and you counter the first person right after you in the turn rotation, the other 2 people play Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Dark Ritual and just start going crazy, you're like, maybe I should have waited. It's like, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
don't pull the trigger when they're just getting a land.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that is
It's-
pretty crazy. But
yeah.
once you hit like turn 8, bombs are going to be coming down. That's when you want to be like,
Yeah.
no, no, no. And then you by saying no at that point, you're also keeping yourself safe.
hmm
But if you wouldn't cast a
Like, how do
Tamiya
you-
safekeeping on it, don't cast it.
Yeah, I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like if you wouldn't, yeah, I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Hell yeah. So counter spells? Good. People who don't know how to play counter spells? Bad.
Bad.
I think the next thing we've got though was something we kind of already touched on. Sorry, I keep sitting crisscross. I fidgety. But our next one was bounce spells, which we talked about a little bit already, which is kind of Blue's like only other option to get something off of the field once it's on the field. If I'm incorrect, I think that's it.
Yeah, bounce spells are kind of it. Well, there's
Yeah.
like kind of 3 spells we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, bounce spells are like once like generally from like as like from a card design point of view, the only way blue deals with permanents is by returning them to your hand.
Yeah. So like an unsummon, which I feel like is like the classic bounce. It's 1 blue at instant speed, return target permanent, or no, target creature to its owner's hand.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the boogeyman of bounce spells would be Cyclonic Rift, which is just
into like a board wipe territory, but it is Psych Rift is different because it's not destroying everything. Like everyone still has access to all those permanents. They're just back in their hand.
yeah.
They're not in the graveyard, which it might debatably be better because it can't like cheaply reanimate stuff with like a Sun Titan or like reanimate or something. But it's definitely still different than like just like using like a Wrath of God or like
Yeah.
they
It's
can
also
they still immediately can cast those again.
Yeah. And these lean really into what a chunk of blue is, which is like tempo plays. Because with like an unsummon, you can set someone a turn or 2 behind. Any kind of bounce thing, they're going to be like a little bit behind because they have to replay it. But then once you hit the level of like a Psych Rift or a Spectral Deluge, which bounces everything equal to the number of islands that you have, it can turn into like kind of a one-sided board wipe, but it's also way more of a tempo play because if all of your stuff is put into the graveyard and everyone's stuff is in the yard, unless someone can reanimate, everyone's kind of like set back to zero. Where with this, you're definitely ahead, and everyone still has to like figure out how to replay their stuff. And if people are drawing a bunch of cards, they also have to like discard down, obviously. So this presses people to like play a little smarter, where like a normal Wrath just kind of resets the board. So I think they add a little bit more to the mix in that sense too. But yeah, it's because nothing sucks more than having to replay like something that you just paid like 10 mana for.
Yeah.
Or if you bounce something that costs
down,
an X,
especially
stinky.
Like a creature, because like they played a creature 2 turns ago, so now they're swinging with it, and then if it doesn't have haste, you bounce it, and then they may have to wait till next turn just to be able to cast it again. And then now they have to wait another turn to even swing with it again.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, that's like an extra 3 turns just to be able to do what they wanted to do with that creature. And at that point, the game might be over. So that is just kind of a removal spell. Like, you remove what they were trying to use that creature for, which was smacking you in the face with it. And, like, you slowed that way. You basically removed that ability from that creature.
Yeah.
It still exists. It's still around, but its purpose was removed, which is really good.
And depending on what curve they're playing on too, they might just never replay that card again because you're trying to stay ahead and stuff. So from that aspect, it does become a removal spell because it's like if it's in their hand and they never played it again, you removed it. You know.
And
but I think these
stuff
are
where they're like cheating. They're cheating stuff into play. Like I remember one time, Sean was playing his Mario, the Naya lady that like cheats stuff into play.
I wanted to say Marwyn, but it's not Marwyn. That's an elf. It's Mael.
He cheated Mael of the Anima, something like that.
Yeah, Mael.
And he got that like Armada worm, like that like an 11/11 that's like 9.
It's a 15 mana creature with Convoke.
Yeah, 15 mana creature with Convoke. And I bounced it to his hand, and he was like, "Well, that's never getting played. That's just gonna sit there forever."
That was so brutal.
Because it's not made. The deck isn't made to Convoke it out. It's made to have like 3 creatures in play. So that thing is never. So that is a removal spell at that point. That creature's gone for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Mael of the Anima.
Yeah.
It's a Naya, and then you pay 3 in Naya and tap her. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can put a creature card with power 5 or greater amongst them onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom in any order. Yeah, it's a very, very fun deck, but yeah, it's about basically holding up, doing Mael on any free point when he can tell that it would probably be safe. Normally the end step before his turn and stuff. But yeah, when that worm got bounced back to his hand, he was literally like, I might as well just discard this because I'm not going to I'm never going to cast it. It was heinous seeing like a 15 mana thing bounce back to somebody's hand. You literally felt, my hand felt like 20 pounds heavier. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'd never want to see that. And I was playing Dimir and I was stuck on like 4 lands, so it hurt even more. I was like, this is never happening.
Spell I used, but it was good.
Yeah, that's the thing about bounce spells. They're all kind of the same. They're all like 1 to 2 mana, and they all just do the same thing, which is sick. Especially because like if you just stock up on them, you're bouncing everything. So, but yeah, I don't think bounce spells do too much more, but they're tried and true. So
yeah. And I mean, they're good, and more decks should play it. Like Rachel Weeks got me on that. Like she's literally a Magic genius, and every time she says something about the format, I'm like, duh, that's like, it's always correct. Yeah. But she said that more decks should be playing things like Boomerang, or Into the Royal, where it's just like return a permanent to someone's hand right now. If like, especially in like Izzet decks or Simic decks or Dimir decks, when you're in like colors where like non-white decks basically, where like you have problems dealing with like there's always like a niche permanent type that you can't get, and those just say, okay, it's gone right now, it's fine, we'll deal with it later.
Yeah, yeah, just forget about it until it's a problem later.
Yeah. Next up, blue's really good at drawing cards.
Yeah.
Kind of. Kind of. Because the thing about blue drawing cards is that they can just draw cards in exchange for mana. Everyone else has to draw cards in different ways. So green draws cards in relation to creatures, sometimes enchantments, and that's it. But it's in relation to their creatures, the power of their creatures, the toughness of their creatures, sacrificing a creature to do something, casting a creature spell with a Beast Whisperer. It's related to creatures to draw cards. Black, it's life. It's using you're paying your life and your mana typically, unless some busted other cases. But you're using your life to draw cards. Red never goes up cards. It's always discarding a card to draw 2 cards. Like a Thrill of Possibility. So you're discarding a card and you're using 1 card in your hand to draw 2 cards. So you're never going up cards. You're always staying the same. And then white draws cards in all the weird ways that they've been letting white draw cards once per turn. Blue is the only one that can go, we're going to draw a card. I'm just going to pay mana and I'm going to draw some cards. But, oh, my cat made a noise. The card, I don't think blue is as good as drawing cards as black or green in Commander, because they have a lot of cards that say draw a card, like cantrips or like big X spells where you can dump like 6 mana into it and draw like 6 cards, which is really good, like a Blue Sun Zenith or Pull from Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But like black and green have ways that synergize with what your deck is doing, and blue doesn't really get that. That you have to do something else in order to draw cards, which is separated from what you're doing. Besides the busted examples of like Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora, which were designed out of the context of what Commander is. And so those, I feel like those don't really count, because those are only 2 cards. They're really amazing cards, they're very powerful cards, but they're not generally what blue is doing, you know?
Yeah. I would agree a little bit, but I was gonna say there's definitely cards like, I'm just looking at some of them right now. There's like Archmage Emirtis, Baral. I think there's a lot of cards that like grant you the ability to draw cards from doing just casting those spells that are gonna draw you cards, you know? So I feel like there's sometimes it does kind of play into what it's doing. It's just a little more setup, you know, because you have to have something that says draw a card whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, which I feel like there's a decent amount of those. And then if you cast, you know, Brainstorm, Opt, any of those, you're turning those into like draw 2 or draw 3. And then, I mean, there's also stuff like Consecrated Sphinx. So then you're paying off for everything that, like, all of those people are drawing cards off of as well. So I definitely think, and we also have stuff like Curiosity effects. So dealing damage with that 2/2 shark is going to draw you a card.
Or
I
coastal
think
piracy kind of effects.
Yeah.
Reconnaissance mission.
So I feel like blue's definitely drawn a bunch of cards. It's just in terms of like for Commander, you sometimes want to be doing more with your mana. So you want to have those card draw engines that are on the board already working together. But I feel like especially if you're playing like Blue Spellslinger, it's really easy to have a couple of pieces out that draw you a bunch of cards just for casting whatever spell you're already casting on top of the other benefits that you're getting. And then, like we were saying, coastal piracy effects, then you swing with just like a vigilant flyer, you know, something that has some kind of evasion, and bonk, you draw like 2 or 3 more cards. I feel like it's pretty solid. It's just like not the same as playing a 60 card format and dumping like 5 mana to draw 5 cards, and then the next turn like kicking ass because you have so much more advantage. But yeah, I'd say blue is still, I'd say blue is top of the pops for drawing.
I still think black is the best at drawing cards because the way black draws cards is so synergistic with what black wants to do.
Yeah,
Because it's sacrificing your creatures to draw cards, or doing which is so free, which is just paying life because you have 40 life, to go. So it's and like the rate of like 2 mana, like Night's Whisper, like blue barely gets 2 mana draw 2 cards. It's always
Yeah.
draw to discard a card,
yeah,
but black can just draw 2 cards and just get 2 cards. Plus all the stuff that's like whenever you sacrifice a creature, whenever a creature dies, you draw a card, or sacrifice a creature to draw 2 cards, and like that's gonna synergize with like 5 other things that you're already playing. Like it's gonna like it's while you're sacrificing your creatures, you're also killing the whole board with like a Zulabor Cutthroat or Bastion Remembrance.
yeah. That's very fair. I wouldn't say blue has like a way to end a game by doing stuff like that, but I think given the like a specific board setup, you could draw like just as many cards. It just wouldn't affect the table in any way.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is a little bit more dangerous, you know, because like James's, what's his fucking,
The Sphinx.
yeah, because he just
Don't get
sits
me
there and he
started
just
on the
draws
Sphinx,
cards,
bro.
but nothing happens to us. So everyone's like,
Yeah,
oh, it's fine,
yeah.
and then he taps it to deal 1 damage to you, and he's like, hey, I'm sorry, you lose, and you're like, excuse me, what?
That's fair.
Like, yeah. So I feel like blue definitely draws cards, but it doesn't necessarily like. It's not like waving its arms like where green's like, look, I played
Yeah.
this 8/8 and I drew 8 cards. What the fuck are you gonna do? Blue's just like, I'm reading this pamphlet. Don't look at me. You know?
Yeah, blue drawing cards in an innocuous way is very fair.
Yeah.
That's definitely something they are good at.
Yeah, but I feel like at this point, all the colors can draw a fuck ton of cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if anyone wants to sit there and say a specific color can't get card advantage, that's just kind of. You're just choosing not to play them at this point because red has so many like exile and looting effects. White has so many like weenie entering things. Go listen to the mono white episode. We're not talking about that. And we've already talked about green and blue and black. You know what I mean? Like all of them have ways to get card advantage. So, but I feel like blue's the best at just like holding it tight.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So,
Woo. Drawing cards is good, and blue does it.
It
Play
is
blue.
good. Yeah.
I think the next cat cam
I know she's being a little baby. She's demanding
again.
attention.
If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or any other thing that doesn't have video, crank on that old YouTube. You
missing
could
out.
just see a little cat pop up on a desk. But the next thing that blue does is cloning stuff, which I was gonna say I don't think any other color does. Yeah.
Red can sometimes make like one-time clones, like a twin flame kind of thing, where it's like you get this for a turn.
Yeah.
But blue is super cool because it's like I'm becoming something. Either like literally making a token copy of something, or making something that can turn into something else, like a phantasmal image, or the card clone, or spark double.
Yeah.
Clever Impersonator can become any permanent on the battlefield, which is crazy. And no color gets to do that like at all. So that's really cool. It's a good thing for blue.
Yeah.
And like that's a whole archetype of decks. Like it's like a clone decks and like making a bunch of clones of like one thing, like Miram, which is like that's kind of why I don't like. I was excited about Miram, and then we figured out that like Miram was the Dragon Commander, was just like, oh, it's just a clone deck, and then you just win because you have like 16 Mirams, and I was like, oh, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted a cool dragon deck in that colors. I didn't want to make a clone deck in that colors.
Yeah, because it doubles all the dragons that you play anyway, so it's like it gets pretty cool. But then once you have like 3 dragons that you've cast, you have 6 dragons, and that's a lot of dragons. 6 goblins is
Yeah.
not a lot of dragons. 6 dragons, 6 goblins is not a lot of goblins. 6 dragons is a lot of dragons.
Is a ton of dragons.
That's a lot of dragons.
But um, so clones are cool.
Yeah, cloning's cool.
You got Sakashima of 1,000 Faces is a really sweet. It's a commander. It's also a really sweet just card to have in a deck.
There was a
It's
really
great, and no one else gets to do stuff like that. Breaking the legend. Well, I think breaking the legend rule is like kind of a blue thing.
yeah. No,
Almost
it definitely
exclusively,
is.
except for like Ratadrabic, but like or like Mirror Box. I guess it's colorless, but like there's a lot of blue cards that say like it does legend rule doesn't matter. So that's kind of a blue thing too.
Yeah, they're definitely expanding it more, but I think for a while it's been mostly just a blue thing. There's this other card called
More blue than other.
yeah, Vesuvian Diplomacy, which was an enchantment from the newest Dominaria set. Whenever you cast a spell that
thing's
targets
nuts.
only a single artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that artifact or creature, except it's non-legendary. Yeah, that thing goes like really, really hard. That's a really cool card.
That art's really cool too.
Yeah. But yeah,
That plus an Ivy is like woo.
yeah, just that's the sound Arena makes.
Yeah.
But yeah, cloning's pretty cool. I feel like it kind of speaks for itself because you're just like making copies of whatever you want to make copies of. She's like, no, don't put me down.
No, she's being so needy.
That's why I don't let Mies in here. He would just be knocking the whole setup over.
Well, she was asleep when we started, and she's decided to wake up.
Now it's cuddle time.
Yeah, I may have to kick her out. Come on, sweetie, you gotta go.
All right, if you want to skip this part, skip forward to 5 seconds from now. She's got like the sweetest little face. She's like Angie. But yeah, cloning is cool. But I think this next part was something that you were mentioning earlier. Some like specific removal.
Yes. So, in general, blue is not good at this, but in actuality, it is very good at this. It is target creature removal. There are like 3 or 4 cards where blue is like really good at doing it, and especially once you branch into other colors, that's kind of all you need is like just 3 or 4 really good cards. And so it's just really good at destroying a creature. It's like a polymorph effect. Destroy a creature, and then that creature's controller gets a creature token. So it's like they're turning them into, you had your normal creature, but now it's a 3/3 ape. And they've taken that away from blue in like recent like Color Pie articles. They say like blue's not allowed to do that anymore. But the problem with Commander is that it's all cards are legal forever, so now these are stuck in the format. It's like Pongify, Rapid Hybridization, Reality Shift, and Resculpt are like 4 spells are like efficient destroy target creature spells. And so blue can't destroy creatures, but in Commander, blue can definitely destroy creatures.
What is the... Oh, and then you also have stuff like Polymorphous Just, which turns things into just frogs, and then they're really easy to kill.
For a little bit, yeah.
So I would toss that kind of in there because it's an instant, so you can cast it like when they swain. And you're like, oops, all your stuff is frogs. Go to the NPC
no,
stream.
That's fair.
Yum, 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 yum. Yummy frog. Yum, 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 yum.
Oh, good. But they're also good at like minus X, minus O effects. It's like your power is like just gone for a second.
Yeah.
Or like, which isn't really great in Commander, but in like Limited and stuff, that's really powerful.
Yeah, and stuff like Dress Down.
Commander. Oh, Dress Down's nuts.
Yeah,
That's a
Dress
really good
Down's.
card.
Yeah.
I won a game with the Dress. Well, I stopped the player from winning with the Dress Down. I'd lost that game, but I beat that player
Nice, hell yeah.
with the Dress Down the other day. It was sweet. Yeah. So like in blue can't destroy creatures, but in Commander, yes, they totally can,
Yeah.
and it's really good at it. Better than green, better than red.
Oh, yeah, fair. That's sick. I love that.
They're
Pong
also
is such a good card.
Oh yeah, yeah. Unless you're in like, I think you should just always play that card. Even like, unless maybe in some white decks, but like in general, you can just play Rapid Hybridization and Pong 5. And then Reality Shift exiles a creature, which is like insane.
Yeah.
That blue got to do that. Like that's probably color pipe break.
Yeah.
It's here forever, so you should play it. Blue's also really good at tapping or untapping permanents, which is really, really interesting. Like green can untap creatures, is good at that. So like doing like infinite mana combos with like Marwyn the Nurturer and stuff, because you're like using a Kyrian Ranger and stuff. That's pretty niche, and it's only certain cards get to do that. But blue can just like you can untap shit all day. You got Retreat to Coral Helm. They just made that like there's like a legendary human that gets to do it from Lord of the Rings now.
Yeah.
Freed from the Real, Pinman Zora,
Kelpie
all
guy.
kinds of stuff that's just like untapped. Kelpie guy, just all kinds of cards that are like untapped target permanent. Blue gets to do that all day, and that's really, really good for tons of stuff.
That's
like pingers,
incredibly
and, like, using
powerful.
artifacts again, using tap abilities again. So that's a super, super cool thing that blue gets to do.
Yeah. And then tapping your opponent stuff is sick too. Classic. That's why like
tapping
Frost
stuff
Links
down.
is
Yeah.
that's why Frost Links is like like a draft favorite.
Staple.
Yeah. But yeah, sick, very fun. Untapping your shit is a bunch of fun. Being able to like,
Oh yeah, it's like I'm gonna Durdlin.
I want to
just
do it
doing
all
stuff.
over again. And everyone goes, oh,
yeah.
and you're like, but do we have anything else for that one? We want to move on to the
No, that's basically it.
hell yeah. Well, let's start talking some artifacts.
Oh yeah. What you got? What you got about that, Ryan?
I don't know. I don't have anything. The only thing in my head is Folio Fancies.
That's such a you card. You love that card.
It's fun. Everyone has no max hand size. There's no problems. So.
Yeah. But blue gets really good artifact synergies. Like they can tutor for artifacts. There's a ton of like mages, like Trinket Mage, Treasure Mage, so they can go search their library for different artifacts. Or Fabricate's a really good card. They interact with artifacts where there's like Ethereum Sculptors, where like artifact spells cost one less. There's a lot of blue legends that care about artifacts and like interacting with artifacts. It's also like blue flavor wise. It's like they're tinkerers and like they're using their knowledge to create things, which is a very blue way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
So like artificers are blue a lot of the time. Artificers, also like there's blues on. This is not artifacts, but like creating things. They create life in the way of like the scabs on Innistrad. So like they're the blue zombies that are like stitched together, stitchers. So it's like a Frankenstein, like Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. I like that difference.
So it's the way blue. What?
I was just gonna mention I liked how they did that on Innistrad, where the zombies that are reanimated are black, but if they're stitched together like a Frankenstein, they're blue.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like the
it's
color
really cool flavor
difference between them. Yeah, I thought that was super fun, and that kind of like explains blue and black like very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but blue and artifacts are kind of like peanut butter and jelly. They just kind of go hand in hand and work really, really well together. Especially if you're able to, like we talked about before, untap stuff, and then you can untap your cracked artifacts and just do it all over again. Your turns go crazy. And then if you're stacking it where like you have the Ethereum Sculptor that brings down the cost, and you also have your Foundry Inspector, you would have you would be at such a mana discount that it would go insane.
Yeah. And like there's a ton of like blue adjacent artifact commanders. So you got like Joyra, which is like a blue commander. with red, but still blue, and it interacts by drawing cards, which is a very blue thing. There's that. There's a lot of like. There's that guy. He interacts with vehicles. I forget his name, but he's pretty interesting. He's like you can. Oh, and also reanimate or like animating artifacts is like a blue thing. It's like Rise and Shine.
Oh,
Or
Rise and Shine is good.
And like Tezzeret can like animate artifacts. It's like making an artifact and making it a creature. That's a blue thing. Also, Karn gets to do that, but that's just kind of a Karn thing. Yeah. So blue cares about artifacts a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. Also, blue's good at +1/+1 counters. Not as much as green and white, but there is blue stuff. Like, they do it in a way that's related to green or related to white. Mostly green, like Simic +1/+1 counters. But there's like Herald of the Secret Streams, which is like creatures with +1 counters can't block or can't be blocked, which is really good.
That goes crazy, yeah.
Yeah, or putting counters on artifacts. That's a thing that blue gets to do sometimes. So counters in ways that relate to blue things, or with other colors, they can deal with counters.
Hell yeah. Then I think the next thing got on here was different types of evasion. So blue's really, really solid at having little sneaky dudes that get on by. Whether that's what's a Slitherblade? Is that what the serpent that is just a 1/1 that says it's unblockable? Our friend Brody has that in his Satoru deck, and that is always just a pain to deal with because it's a little 1/1, and he swings with it, and then he ninjutsus it out, and then he just goes second main phase. I recast Slitherblade, and we're like, God, it just is always there, and it's 1 mana. It's so easy to get out. And then so that is one thing that blue can do, but it can also fly a lot of birds. A lot of things with wings, a lot of fairies. So it's also very easy to like go over the top of a lot of stuff, which for black and for red, it can just destroy. And unless you're playing in a weird draft, then it probably will wreck green too, because I don't think people pack spiders or archers strictly for like flying hate, you know? But yeah, with flying and unblockable, that also helps out with drawing cards with those curiosity effects too, because you just load up a 1/1 dude that can't be blocked with 3 or 4 enchantments that say when he whacks, draw a card. Got a gnat in here, excuse me. And every time he whacks, you draw 2 or 3 cards. Super sick. That's awesome. And just doing evasion's a really solid way to end any game. You know, if you're playing blue and black and you put Phyresis on something that can't be blocked, you gotta remove that player, you know? Or if it's green and you got a bunch of burbs, you could just Triumph of the Hordes. That's like an easy way to get to everybody. But yeah, blue's like really, I think blue's probably, is blue the best at evasion, and then black with like fear and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or green with trample as well.
Oh, that's fair. I think a
but
trample is
blue
going
is really
through. Evasion goes like up or down.
Around.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, blue's really good with also giving a bunch of stuff flying at the same time. Because you got like Archetype of Imagination.
Yes.
You got Sun Quan, which is like give all your creatures horsemanship. You got Cyberdrive Awakener, which gives like all artifact creatures flying, something like that. It's also good at like, or Gravitational Shift. It's like all your creatures is something. It's got like Emrakul on the art, I think.
Which one? Only one.
Gravitational Shift. Oh, okay. It's just creatures with flying get +2/+0. Creatures without flying get -2/-0 from Rise of the Eldrazi. It's a 5-mana enchantment. Or this Favorable Winds, which is really good. It's like 1 in a blue. Creatures with flying get +1/+0 or +1/+1. Which is really good for like that rate for like an Anthem just for flying creatures. It's pretty good. It's also weird thing for blue to get, which is interesting. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there's now that I'm looking at like the EDH rec page. I haven't been on this website in a while. There's like favorable ones. I think you brought up. There's a lot of stuff. There's Empyrean Eagle. Um,
Yeah.
they all give all your stuff with flying +1, +0, or +1. And then I mean, there's also like Alila Artful Provocateur, who is just all about making flyers and boofing them up. Boofing them up. What the hell?
This very blue part of that card.
It's very blue to bloof things up. So
Yeah.
yeah, and if there's a bunch of flyers, it's just really hard to deal with sometimes, unless you're also doing the same thing. So, extra turns.
Yeah. What about them, Ryan?
They are a lot of fun. Because who doesn't love playing Magic? We all play this game because we love it. So why wouldn't you want to cast things that allow you to play the game more?
But yeah, so blue is really good at extra turns.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sweet.
Whether it be a spell that just says, take an extra turn after this one. Or, what's the pirate that does it?
Time Stream Navigator?
Yeah, Time Stream Navigator. When she comes down, if you have Ascension, which is 10 or more permanents, you can...
Ascend.
Yeah, Ascend. You can pay 4 and tap her and take an extra turn. There's some Tefiris that take an extra turn. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. It's not just like casting a spell, but that's why Time Walk is so crazy, because it's 1 and a blue. Take an extra turn.
Yeah, not good.
It's so fucking crazy. Which is why playing Alchemy on Arena is fun, because there's the bird that puts the power 9 into your deck, and then if you blink that, you can just blink a bunch of Time Walks into your deck. And then you play it with the Jin-Gitaxias that copies your first instant and sorcery each turn, and then you take a 2 double turns each turn that you take. It's really fun.
Sounds miserable.
Yeah, extra turns are also obviously like not super fun, because everyone wants to play the game. So while you're playing the game more, other people aren't. Which can get a little bit salty, but I think extra turn spells are like just super awesome for ending the game. If you have a turn where you make a fuck ton of tokens, just try and take an extra turn after that one so you can swing with them all and end it. I think as long as they're played well, they're not salty or anything like that. But if you're just like taking an extra turn and then the extra turn comes and you go, I play a land, I'm gonna play this dude and I'm gonna pass, and you've got like 7 mana up, it's like, what? Why'd you do that? Don't do that. Beat me. If I hear the words extra turn, I want to lose. So, yeah. But I think it's still pretty fun though.
Yeah, and like there's a ton of blue cards that do it, and they're normally expensive mana wise. So like kind of the cheapest rate you can do it is like, and just like on a card is like Time Warp, which is 5 mana, take an extra turn. So it's like your first one, you're like not really doing. Like you're paying 5 mana to take an extra turn, so that turn, unless you have a ton of mana, you're not gonna do a lot. So it's also just kind of like draw an extra card, play an extra land, so it just kind of ramps you, which is nice. That's why Growth Spiral is pretty crazy. It's like half of an
extra turn.
Take an extra turn. It's like you're just playing you're drawing an extra card and you're playing an extra land.
Yeah,
so that's kind of a Time Walk. So 5 mana for it is like kind of the rate, but then there's also Temporal Trespass, something like that. It's like the Delve one, so it costs like 12 mana, but you can exile cards from your graveyard, and then do it for 3. There's a Miracle one. Temporal something maybe. So you can, if it's the first card you draw, you can reveal it and then pay 2 mana for it, which is really good.
The Miracle one is Temporal Mastery.
Okay.
Yeah. It's 5 and 2 blue. Take an extra turn after this, but if it's the Miracle cost, it's 1 and a blue. So it's basically a Time Walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's what's it called? The one that's like 7 mana, Nexus of Fate. So it's like it's an instant, and it shuffles into your deck, so you can't loop it. But if you if you empty your library, you're just taking infinite extra turns, and you just kind of win.
Yeah,
because the game's over. It's like no one else is going to cast another spell. No one else is getting another turn.
No.
So yeah, very powerful effect. Red gets it kind of, but when you get your extra turn, the game's over. After that, you get one extra turn and then you lose after that turn with like Warrior's Oath and Chance for Glory. There's like a Boros.
Yeah,
there's maybe one or two Boros.
Yeah.
So Boros gets it because of red, but they don't you lose the game after that extra turn. So
yeah, so the only
Blue's
way
the
to
only one that's just like
get around that would be like an Obeka type thing. If you were able to end the turn on that trigger, you wouldn't lose. But
I think there might be a way where actually you can't do that. It's like because at the end of the game you just lose. Like at the end, at that turn's end step, you lose the game. I don't know if that's a trigger. I could be wrong about that.
If you somehow skip the extra turn Chance for Glory gives you, or skip that turn's end step, the delayed trigger ability never resolves.
Okay.
So
there you go.
Yeah. I just was looking at it on Gather for some reason, so all the rulings were right there. Yeah, which is just crazy because it makes all your creatures indestructible for that turn as well, which is really sick. But yeah, obviously, like, not super common outside of blue. Blue's kind of the only thing that can continually do that. Yeah, but there's a bit up here next that I don't know too much about, Tyler. What's this next section about?
Yeah, so there's just kind of like weird stuff where it's just like blue just kind of does whatever the fuck it wants in like weird ways, like Mystic Reflection kind of cards, where it's just like
that card fucking rips.
Your card is like something else, or like Mass Diminish, where like all your creatures are something else for a little bit, like, or it's like Mass Polymorph, or like
we're talking about the frogs.
Yeah,
Polymorphous
is just so like just kind of like where blue gets to do weird stuff, or like putting cards on like third from the top, putting cards
into piles,
just interacting with the stack and like doing weird stuff and like in weird ways. There's just like a bunch of weird old cards that do really weird stuff as well. Just like cards that feel like they break the rules. They are within the rules, but like are outside. No other color gets to do the weird stuff.
Yeah,
blue does.
That's very fair.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's all that point was.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah. Nice.
And then instants and sorceries. We talked about that a little bit, but like Talrand's, Baral, they can tutor for instant and sorceries. They can give stuff flashback with Leer and Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah.
So just they can interact with the graveyard with instants and sorceries.
Archaeomancer's Mage and stuff mill. Like that. Yeah. Lots of mill.
And they also mill. That's like the blue is kind of the only color that can like destroy your opponent's deck by either milling or exiling the like Tasha's Hideous Laughter. You can like destroy those cards. Those cards are exiled forever. Only blue gets to do that.
Yeah, which is sick. Which kind of goes back to when we were talking earlier about blue's win cons aligning with the old style of like Magic R&D is destroying the mind. So like playing like a Fraying Sanity, Psychic Corrosion, anything that's like putting cards into the graveyard. And then in AFR for some reason they were like, let's print Tasha's Hideous Laughter at 3 mana. This isn't going to be any kind of issue. It's very fair.
Yeah. That like yeets stuff away.
It is crazy. It is crazy because lands don't cost anything. So goodbye. It's really crazy. It's fun playing it in a 60 card format where you can have 4 of them, and then you're like Tasha's Hideous Laughter, and they're like fuck, and then you're like Tasha's Hideous Laughter, and they're like fuck. But yeah, so I was gonna say that's Mill's always a fun win con. It's way more of a puzzle, but
yeah. And Mill's not good. It's not efficient.
No, no, it's so bad.
But people hate it. I mean, I was in a game a couple nights ago on a stream, where someone this was a black card. It was the black rogue where it's like I think it was from M21. It's like something like Guild's Enforcer or something maybe. Um it's like Thieves Guild something. But when it enters the battlefield or when another rogue enters the battlefield, you mill some cards. Um Everyone like your opponent's mill cards. And so and the first two cards that were milled were my Swords of Plowshares and my Reality Shift. And then a Slicer came out, and then I had no way of like dealing with it because they my two of my removal spells were gone.
Yeah.
So mill is like it can be effective
Yeah.
because it just like removes stuff. It removes resources from your opponents, and like milling creatures is not good because a lot of decks can deal with that. Or milling artifacts can't be good because then they can use them from the graveyard. But milling is still can be effective.
Yeah. If you're milling like one or two cards here and there, sometimes it's not really that big of a deal. But if you're able to mill a big chunk of cards and you hit the removal spell and the Eternal Witness, you know, you hit the extra turn spell and the Archaeomancer's Mage all in one go. That's what you want, because then they can't get it back. They're looking at the way to get it back and the thing that they want, both in the yard, and there's nothing you can do. That's the villain art coming out, and that card was Thieves Guild Enforcer. It's got flash, and whenever it or another rogue enters the battlefield, each opponent mills 2 cards. Yeah.
And that happened. He kept because it was a Satoru. No, it was a Yuriko deck, so he kept doing that. He milled like all my removal spells. So I mean, that's a black thing.
Yeah,
that was a black card, but it. The point is that mill it can be decent. It's better. It's better than I think people make it out to be. It's still not an efficient win con, but it's doable. But removing cards from sometimes like some decks, once it's in the graveyard, you're just gone.
Yeah.
You're not getting that back.
Scooby.
But so what is blue bad at? Kind of not a lot. Blue's pretty great. It's like it's not good at non-combo win cons. It's not as good as like white or green or red or any of the other at like combat win cons. I mean, there's like plenty of ways where you can just like you untap, you get infinite mana, and then you do something. But like just like mono blue, I don't know how blue wins the game.
Yeah.
Without taking infinite turns or like some weird spell win con or non-combo win cons. Blue, I don't think blues or Thassa's, like empty library win, which is good. That's a great way to win, but just not. Depending on your meta, some people are like no combos.
Yeah, and then you have to figure out how to draw your whole deck fairly if you're going to do like a Thassa win or a Labman win. Unless you self-milled, but blue's not necessarily a self-mill color. That's more of a black thing. But yeah, I would say
it's pretty good at self-mill. It's pretty good because like it's like good at saying target player mills cards and you can choose yourself.
Yeah, but there's a lot that are also just like target opponent or each opponent.
Sure.
But yeah, I was gonna say outside of the like just comboing, taking a bunch of extra turns or doing something that like automatically mills the whole table, it's not super solid. Because there's also not a ton of ways to make like a ton of tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like permanent removal is also something that it kind of struggles with. Because like we were saying, you can bounce it and then maybe you're lucky they don't play it again. But I was gonna say there's not always times like if there's a problematic land that's gonna be like way harder to deal with than if you were in like red or green. Red or white, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it can't deal with enchantments at all. I mean, besides bounce, non-land permanent. But you're not destroying an enchantment.
Yeah.
Like, no way. I mean, you can destroy some artifacts with kind of 2 spells with Raven Form, which is a sorcery, and you still give them a bird, and then Resculpt, and then you give them a 4/4. And like those, they said they were mistake cards and they shouldn't have done them. But they exist, so now blue can deal with artifacts with 2 cards.
Yeah.
But in general, blue can't deal with artifacts. There's not a lot of ways. There's like kind of inefficient ways of dealing with artifacts. But enchantment's not doing anything. Nothing permanently.
Yeah.
And board wipes. It's bad at creature board wipes. It's terrible at like. I mean, they just got like filter out, which is like just return 3 mana, return all non-creature permanents to their owner's hand. So it's good at stuff like that, but that's not like an austere command. That's not like a Bane of Progress. You know, it's not just blowing everything up and now they're gone. Like they're just yeeted back to your hand.
Yeah.
And like there's some pretty cool blue ones, like whatever that like serpents and octopus one. And
Yeah.
Leviathans return to hand. But nothing like what the other colors get. Yeah, so blue can do a lot. Can do a ton of stuff.
Yeah. It is
color.
a good color. And even the things that it can't do, it has workarounds.
Do it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it just can kind of do anything. It's a really good color. So now we're talking about our favorite blue cards. So Ryan, what's one of your favorite blue cards, and why do you like it?
Well, I was to say probably the one that I'd have to start out with is Muldrifter. I feel like it's just super classic, and it kind of does a little bit of everything. It's a little guy. He's got flying. When it enters, it draws you 2 cards. But the reason this is just like a commander staple card is the evoke cost. You can pay 2 and a blue, and it sacrifices itself when it enters the battlefield, but you still get to draw those 2 cards. Yeah, and this card is just sick because 2 or 3 mana draw 2 cards is awesome. But if you pay 4 and a blue, it stays on the battlefield, and then in like Brago and stuff, you can blink it every turn, so you're drawing 2 cards every single turn, which at that point is just really awesome value. It's sick as fuck. And also the art is just cool. I like that it's like a elemental fish.
It is awesome. It's I think it's from Lorwyn, so it's like an elemental, and like they're just weird things.
Yeah, the designs are just crazy. But I think
There's also some cool ones. Like that's pretty cool. And then the cute secret lair, Muldrifter. Just
yeah, that one is super fun and cute. I love that. And then I think that's the one that I got because you have the full art one, right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think Tyler and I split this secret lair, and it was sick. We each got one of each of them. Yeah, but I think it's just a really good classic commander card. It kind of is a little bit of olive blue, and
It flies.
yeah, and it's a 2/2. It's classic.
Yeah, it's small, but it does a good effect. So you blink it, you can reanimate it, you can do a bunch of stuff with it.
Yeah. So that's probably my first favorite card. But what's your first favorite card?
I also got a blue card that draws cards and flies. It's a new card. It's from last year. It's Ledger Shredder. I love shredding some ledgers. It's 1 in a blue for a flyer. For a 1/3, and then whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, it connives. So you connive as you draw a card and then you discard a card. If you discarded a non-land card this way, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Which I love it. It's really good. Oh, it's down to $11. I paid $20 for mine. But oh well, it's really good. It saw some like 60 card play for a little bit. It's kind of gone down in favor just because it dies to Fatal Push.
Yeah,
But in Commander, it's really, really, really good. Because it loads up your graveyard for stuff. It interacts with your opponent's drawing cards, or it interacts with your opponent's casting spells. And in Commander games, if you're not casting 2 spells per turn, I think you're like kind of falling behind. So it's really good.
yeah, it's a really solid card. And the price coming down is pretty solid.
Yeah, pick one up. I think it's worth $10 for sure.
Yeah, It's really good. I think my next one's gonna be Fleet Swallower. Just because that thing is fucking insane.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. This is a card I learned about like right when I started playing Commander again. I went to a local
I
store.
remember that.
Yeah, it was me, Tyler, and a friend, and we were there, and I told him I was making a mill deck. And the guy that worked there was, he said I was like the worst kind of person. And then he pulled this card out and he was like, it's $3. Do you want it? And I was like, absolutely. It's 5 and 2 blue for a 6/6 fish. And when it attacks, target player puts half of his or her library rounded up into his or her graveyard. So it's just like fucking insane. It's fucking surreal. There's like very few cards that do anything as huge as this. And, it isn't even like it hardly ever even goes off. You're going to pay 7 mana for it. Someone's going to just immediately like Heartless Act it. They're going to do something for 2 mana to kill it. And it goes off maybe once every 4 or 5 games. But it's so fun and it's cool because it just looks like one of those giant coelacanth fishes, you know? Just huge, like a coelacanth that could eat a whole boat. So I think it's fun as fuck.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those. One thing we forgot to talk about blue is that they get big sea creatures. They do get big, They get big sphinxes, but they also get like big, like whales and octopus and leviathans. And this is one of those, and it's cool.
Yeah, super sick. I love it. I love it.
And the flavor text is fun.
Captain,
I think that island is following. That's fun.
Yeah, it's so good. But yeah, I would say that's one of my other favorite blue cards.
I also got another creature. This is like kind of it's another New Capenna card. New Capenna got a lot of shit when it came out, but like there's some heat in that set.
Yeah.
It just like wasn't immediately like splashy, but I thought the flavor was great and stuff. And this is really good in a ton of decks. Personally, I think it's really, really great. It's Cephalid Face Taker. It's a clone, and it can't be blocked, so it's unblockable. It's got evasion. I think that's super blue. So it's 3, and it's 3 mana for a 1/4. Can't be blocked. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have it become a copy of another creature until end of turn. So any creature anywhere. Except it's a 1/4 and has this creature can't be blocked. So I think that's really great for a bunch of reasons. So if you have a creature, if you're playing a deck that has a bunch of whenever this creature deals combat damage effects, which blue has a ton of those, like, and it's a rogue, so it's good in like rogues decks. It's good in ninja decks. There's a ton of like other creatures that say whenever this that your opponents play that say whenever this deals combat damage, do something. So it can become that and always hit it. It's also good in Sauron, the Dark Lord, because it can become a copy of your army.
Oh shit!
But it won't die as a copy of your army because it's still a 1/4. Because the army is a 0/0. So this is a good way to have your an army deal damage, so you can have the Sauron effect. I run this in Rilsa Rail Kingpin because I have like the whole point is to steal the initiative back, and so it just keeps it's unblockable, and I have a ton of things that say whenever this creature deals damage, do something. And so this becomes whichever one's on the field. I get to do it a second time.
Nice, hell yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the better clones out there.
Yeah, it's a very good card, especially being able to have it still be unblockable with whatever it's a copy of is sick.
Yeah, I think it should see a ton more play.
Oh, absolutely. It's only 40 cents.
What's your next one, Ryan?
I'll say my next one is going to be Swan Song. Just because I think a 1-mana counterspell that's going to hit anything that's targeting my stuff is pretty sick. This is like, to me, one of the best protection counterspells. Obviously negate is like 1 mana more and doesn't give them a bird. So you could also, you would run both. But I think just being able to hold up 1 mana and stop any instant or sorcery from nailing you is really solid. It also hits enchantments, which is sick. You know, if there's something that doesn't target you, but there's a big prob enchantment coming down, you can just stop it and give them a bird. So, no doubling season, have a bird. Can't double that bird, but you can have it. So I would say that's probably why it's like one of my top counter spells, especially for like casual Magic. Just as like a protection spell, I think it's great.
Yep, 100%. It's really good. It's also just got reprinted in Tales of Middle Earth. So this was like almost a $20 card at one point. Now you can get that version for $7, worth $7 for sure.
Yeah.
Protects your stuff. It hits enchantments, which are huge because like stopping big dumb enchantments, there's a ton of those, like your Rhystic Studies, your Smothering Ties, your Fiery Emancipations or whatever. That
Yes.
So like just big enchantments come down that win the game, and this stops those. It protects your stuff. It stops big instants and sorceries that win the game.
This would stop Perforos too, right? That's an enchantment
Perforos.
creature. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really good. It hits all the relevant types that I want my counter spells to hit personally.
Yeah. But what's your next one? I think it looks like you've got a counter spell up there too.
Yes. I got a big stupid one that also just does a bunch of blue stuff as well. It's Sublime Epiphany. It's a 6 mana instant, so it's super, super, super expensive for a counter spell, but it does a lot more than that.
So worth it.
It counters target spell, and it counters target activated or triggered ability, which is really sweet. And then, so you kind of want to just hold it up and then do one of those two things. But then after that, you get to return a target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, create a token copy of target creature you control, so you can make just another, like make a clone of something, and then you draw a card, so it replaces. Well, target player draws a card, so it replaces itself.
Yeah.
And so target player draw a card is interesting because you could do this in response to someone's like Thassa Trigger, and so Thassa Trigger's on the stack. They mill their library, and then you have them draw a card, and then they lose a game, and then you get to do other stuff. So
Nice.
which is like a niche case, especially in casual mana like Magic. Like in where you're playing this deck, you're probably not going to be seeing that because it's 6 mana.
Yeah.
You know, but you can. Like that is technically possible. And then yeah, so it just does like a bunch of blue stuff. The art's amazing.
Yeah, the art is
and
fucking
it's
sick.
just cool. Like this is the kind of shit I want to play Commander for. It's also, I think it's really good in like Cascade decks, because if you Cascade into this, you don't really want to run counterspells in Cascade decks, but this has like 3 modes that you don't mind doing when you Cascade into it. So I think it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I love this card. It's amazing.
Yeah. I think that's like one of the first counter spells I ever like purchased with my own money.
Yeah, that was right when we really started playing.
Yeah.
Nice. What's your next one?
Oh, my next one is Leyline of Anticipation.
Oh yeah, I thought about doing this one.
Yeah. This card is really sick. I think I have it in
Super blue.
2 decks, and the amount of times it has actually done its thing is like sick. Leyline of Anticipation is 2 blue and 2 generic mana for an enchantment. If it's in your opening hand, you can begin the game with it on the battlefield, and then it gives all of your spells flash, which is just so sick, because then you just land go, and at every end step you're like, oh, I flash this creature and I flash this thing, and I'd play my sorcery draw spell. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. And it's sitting between like $3 to $5 depending on which copy you want to get. Some of the ley lines are solid, some of them are hit or miss depending on what you're going for, but I think this one is like always a solid run, because being able to just cast anything at flash speed is a huge advantage.
Oh yeah.
But that's all I got for that one.
Oh yeah, I love this card. I've won games with it. I have a vivid memory of winning with a Revel in Riches with this, because I flashed it out with enough treasures, and so I won at my upkeep with it, which was pretty sick.
Yeah.
And it's an enchantment, which I think is really important, because like It synergizes well in enchantment decks. And then just being able to start the game with it is insane. Like not having like the ley line text is so interesting and like fun. It's like you don't have to cast a spell. Like it's just you're there. Like you're
Yeah.
just like it exists. It's like an emblem, you know.
Yeah.
You got it. You know. It's really sick.
Yeah, and then if someone's really worried about it, it really forces like an early piece of removal, which is like probably the only piece someone would have in their hand. So it also really will draw.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah, and it is drawing it for what? Like not necessarily that huge of an advantage, you know, especially in the early game. So I think this is always a solid include in blue decks.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun one.
Yeah.
Mine is kind of I love this card a lot. I think it always plays way better than you think it would. It's Run Away Together, which this art is also kind of hilarious. It's a Mind Flayer and a Githyanki falling in love. But it's also from Throne of Eldraine. So like the Beauty and the Beast kind of thing, or like Hunchback of Notre Dame. But it's choose 2 mana, choose 2 target creatures controlled by different players. Return those creatures to their owner's hands. So like this is just kind of above rate. It's like 1 mana, return a creature to your owner's to its owner's hand is good, or 2 mana, return a non-land permanent. But this is 2 mana, get 2 creatures back to their owner's hands at instant speed. I think that's really sweet. Also, you have the flexibility of hitting your own stuff. If so, like in response to like board wipe, you can return your most important thing and return someone's token. So you're just getting your thing back, and who cares? Or you can, if something big swinging at you, you can like, okay, return that to your hand, and then also return something that I don't want them doing, you know? So it's just like 2 mana, get 2 things. I just think that's really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I run it in like a ton of decks, and I think it always plays better than you think it would.
I mean, 1 mana for each creature is really solid. And you, like you said, you could either make it super asymmetrical where it only helps you, or you can make it kind of brutal and bounce like 2 really important pieces for 2 different players. And especially depending on how much those things cost, it might not even play them again. So, yeah, I think it's a great card, and it's under 5 cents. So, like, everyone should definitely run it.
Yeah. I think it's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great card. My next one that I had was Fray Insanity. This is my last one. And it's a enchantment or a curse from Amonkhet, Hour of Devastation. It's 2 and a blue. Enchant player. At the beginning of each end step, enchanted player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is the number of cards put in that graveyard from anywhere this turn. Whoa, from anywhere this turn? I didn't realize it said anywhere this turn. Whoa, this card is even better than I thought. I've been playing it wrong for like 3 years. Holy shit. But this is like an immediate combo of Fleet Swallower. You cast Fray Insanity on someone, swing at them, they mill half their deck, and at their end step they have to mill the other half of their deck. It gets really crazy. The other thing that's fun with this is stacking this with like rune crabs, where a land enters and you mill 3. And if you have 3 rune crabs and you have 3 of these, it gets really, really ridiculous because you're milling exponentially. You mill 9 from the crabs, and then you mill another 9 from that, and then it triggers the other one, so you would have to mill 18 from that, and then you would trigger that, and then you have to, you know what I mean? So it gets really brutal, but I do think it's really fun. The art is also really cool. It's like a mummy with their wrappings coming undone above their head, and their thoughts are like coming out. But yeah, very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, it's in the mill deck. This is super, super, super good.
Yeah,
it's really good. Or a curse deck. But yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah,
really, really good. And that synergy with Fleet Swallower is really, really awesome.
Yeah, the Fleet Swallower thing is super fun. Yeah, it's just a way to like completely double up whatever you're doing mill wise, which is really hard, especially when milling stuff is you're milling like 3 to 4 cards a turn, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna say, and then do you have another one? What do you got? I think you've got one of the Cokers.
I'm going off the rails with this one. I had one,
Oh my
but
god. I don't know what he's
yeah,
talking.
I'm changing it.
What are we doing?
But I think this card is really underplayed. It's really good. It's 3 in a blue for Leadership Vacuum. It's an instant. Target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone. Draw a card. So it bounces a commander in a very, very interesting way because it doesn't target the creature. It targets the player. So it gets around Hexproof in Shroud.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it returns if, let's say, they gain control of your commander, you get your commander back in the command zone. Because like if they yeet if they gain control of your commander with like a Gilded Drake or something, that kind of effect, which I mean your Gilded Drake's more of a CDH thing, but that kind of effect, where you lose your commander, you can get it back. If they turn it into an elk, if they put it in the moon, it gets around that. So you get it back in the command zone that way. In the Oubliette, if it's phased out, I'm pretty sure you can return it to the battle. I think maybe not Oubliette, but other stuff, because it's still, no matter what zone it is, it's still your commander. I don't know about Oubliette, but I think every other thing it will return it to the command zone. If you're playing against a partner deck, this is so hilarious because you're getting both of their commanders, so you just like 2-for-1 them. So that's really, really good. And then it says draw a card on it, so it replaces itself. So it's just a pretty good way to deal. It's flexible because it can help you. It protects your commander and hits other commanders in a really unique way. It's an instant, so it synergizes. Like I run this in my Veyron deck because it's an instant. And so it synergizes with Spellslinger stuff. And I just think it's really good. I think it should see more play.
Absolutely. The ability to just target like any commander like that is really fucking sick. I'm just looking at the Oubliette rulings real fast to see.
Yeah, I don't know.
It says while the permanent is phased out, it is treated as though it doesn't exist. It can't be the target of spells or abilities. Its static abilities have no effect on the game. Its triggered abilities can't trigger, but that doesn't have anything to do with the player.
Our commander still commander while phased out. As such, if your commander is phased out due to the Oubliette, the game treats this as if the commander doesn't exist. So
it doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. Because it's like it doesn't exist, so I guess it is no longer your commander, I think.
I think it, not even that it isn't your commander, it just doesn't, the card wouldn't see it, like you wouldn't have the option to select anything. And then when it phases back in, it's just still your commander.
I don't know.
But either way, this is still like one weird catty corner thing with the worst commander removal card in the history of the format. Is pretty fine, And then it also says draw a card, so it's like 2 mana bounce commander draw a card.
That's what really makes it good.
Yeah,
is that it's a little above rate, but it replaces itself, and none of your other removal spells say draw a card on them.
Yeah.
So I think it's real good.
I think it's sick, and it's under 15 cents. So play it.
Yeah, just go get it. Who cares? It's 15 cents. If it sucks, you're out 15 cents.
Yeah, and you've definitely spent more than that on cardboard. I know it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, what is one final thing, Ryan? What's your favorite blue commander? We're gonna go like mono blue. What's your favorite like mono blue commander?
My favorite mono blue commander, as of the moment, I had made a casual deck that I took apart because it just wasn't really doing its thing. But I do have an Urza Lord High Artificer CEDH list that is a lot of fun to play. And the whole point of it is to make you scoop. It's meant to lock out the board super hard and super fast, and then that's it. But it's really cool. I think Urza is a super cool, crazy cracked card.
Yeah,
And it's a lot of fun
insane.
to play with. So it's crazy when you do Island and what's the oh my god, Jeweled Lotus. And then
Yeah, you can turn one this.
yeah,
this
turn
once.
one Urza and you're like, oops.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And it's got like everything you would want. Like it makes a creature that gets bigger, and like that creature can get big.
Yes.
Once you get more artifacts out there, and then also it ramps you. It gives you mana. It's got the infinite outlet on it. It's got the Mind Over Matter text, which is insane. 'Cause that itself, that Mind Over Matter is like a $50 card.
Yeah.
Like you could just play this and not even care about the synergies. Like you can just play this and then just because it's an infinite mana outlet, which is crazy.
Yeah,
It's
you
nuts.
really can. It just kind of has the whole thing strapped onto it, which is why I
Yep.
get some people don't like it, but I think for playing
Yeah, it's definitely like pushed as fuck.
Oh,
It's, like,
absolutely.
too good of a card.
Yeah, that's why you play it in
Um,
CEDH.
But it's Urza, like he should be.
Yeah.
Like this was his first card. He was like a classic character, and like this is the first time he ever got a card, and like they went all out for him.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, it's real good.
I like it. I think it's fun. So, and he's getting a
Yeah,
reprint in Commander
context of
Masters.
CDH is
So.
awesome. Yeah, it's gonna plummet. It's already down to 12.
Yeah,
$12,
which is sick. So,
it's gonna be cheaper than that.
if you've ever wanted an Urza, now's
Mine-
the time. But yeah, what do you got? Let's fucking
I got
go. Let's fucking go.
yeah, she's super weird. I think she's really underrated. She's my budget commander. Like this deck was 25 cents. I literally just like there's like a bulk rare box at a LGS near here where you just go through all the blue cards, and I just did that and grabbed all like the leviathans and whales and all like the big fish and some big stupid dragons, Eldrazi, and stuck it in this deck, and it just plays. It functions. It's pretty fun. It's Jalira, Master Polymorphist. It's so 4 mana for a 2/2, and then you can pay 3, tap her, and sacrifice another creature and reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary creature and put that card onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And so it's like a polymorph deck. It's just like turning little crabs and like little dinky tokens into big stupid creatures, and it's not good, but it's super fun. It's like my we're playing low power, and I'm just trying to like just cheat some stupid things into play and be a problem. It's fun. I like her a lot, and I think more people should play her. It's definitely not powerful, but it's super fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It really sucks when like a 1/1 bird turns into a Path Raiser of Ulamog, you know, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Also, it is a Pauper legal commander because it got dropped down to uncommon, so you can
Oh.
run this in Pauper commander. And I've never seen anyone do that. It seems really good.
I would say so. That's cool. I didn't know that.
But yeah, definitely give her a try.
Yeah,
I like her a lot.
yeah, she's a ton of fun. That anytime you play that deck, it's always been a really good time.
Yeah, goofy stuff happens. And you can play like weird cards like
Yeah.
it's like Fountain, I think. Yeah, Fountain of Ichor. So you play like mana rocks that can like turn themselves into creatures.
Oh shit! Yeah.
So like your mana rock, so like it's a little slow, but I think there's like some 2 mana ones. And so like you're playing your mana rocks, and then later you can turn them into creatures, so you can sacrifice them to get more stuff into play.
Nice.
So like you can play weird stuff, which I think is really interesting. Also a lot of like top of library stuff like Brainstorm and stuff like that. So it's fun.
Nice.
I like it a lot.
That's sick. Yeah, I love that. That's a really good synergy, especially with like the key runes and stuff too.
Yes, key runes. Yep,
Yeah.
those are in there.
Nice.
So that's blue. It's one of the 5 colors of Magic, debatably the best.
Yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun. So,
But yeah, what blue? Also, we didn't talk about the best blue cards. That's not what the point of that was.
Oh.
But there's
Yeah.
definitely way better blue cards you
If
could
you
be playing.
turned in-
But those are just the ones we like to play.
yeah, if you tuned in expecting to hear us talk about Ristic Study, sorry. That was not.
You know, Ristic Study is a good card.
Yeah.
You don't need us to tell you to play Ristic Study. Like these are just why other cards you should play.
Yeah, this
because
is
they're fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
And that's why you play Commanders, because it's fun.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to get a fun little game in sometime, hit us up on Twitter. Definitely trying to play some more games this summer. I'm finally getting my job under control, so hopefully I'll have more time here soon. And give us a follow on TikTok if you haven't. I'm going to finally start jumping in, but Tyler's been making some really amazing content over there. So, yeah, give us a follow over there. If you thought any of our... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like and subscribe on all the platforms. It
we
helps
do
a
have
lot.
YouTube,
It's like,
yeah.
that's how we...
Hit the bell.
Yeah, we're on YouTube now, so like and subscribe. On Spotify, you can. There's like a reply function. Let us know what you think of this episode. Give us a 5-star rating if you like it. It helps a lot if you do that. That's how we get into the algorithm. So if you enjoyed this episode, and that's a good, easy, free way to help us out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Anything helps, so thank you guys. And I guess we'll tune in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. See ya in paradise.
Enjoy your time in Commander's Paradise. Bye-bye.